into session 2, AI and pre-sales, redefining your playbook. I'm so excited to introduce you to our hosts and panelists for this session. Jack Cochran, GM of PSC, Pam Dunn, Head of Solutions at Lorica Cybersecurity, Jay Mulakala, Director of Solutions Engineering at Drone Deploy, and Steve Barrio, Pre-sales and Technical Sales Executive in the Embedded Devices and Edge industries. I'm handing it over to you, Jack. Take it away.
Thank you, Courtney. Welcome, everyone. Thank you to everyone on the previous panel, as well as Courtney said, for that excellent session 1. But right into session 2, we don't want to waste any time here. I know I've been excited for this conversation. I've had a chance to just catch up with Pam, Jay, and Steve a little bit just in prep for this. And I think you're going to take a lot out of this, right? AI has been changing a lot of what we do beyond just our work. And I think what a lot of us want to know is what are some good strategies for taking AI and effectively empowering our teams to use it in the right way. And that's a lot of what we're going to be digging into today. And what I actually want to start with, kind of a question I want to hear from everybody on the panel. I know everyone has a take on this. But if we look at the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think? Obviously, nobody knows because 3 to 5 years ago looks different than it does now. But where do you think it's going, and what trends do you think we're really going to be hitting on? Steve, I'd like to start off with you, if you don't mind. Where do you see AI changing pre-sales in the next 3 to 5 years?
So I think it's two things. It's automation, but it's also uh, I would say mastering the flow of data that has become just so great and so diversified that it's almost impossible for any regular human being to know everything, right? And there's different data sources, different databases where you have the knowledge and you know it's there, but finding it and condensing it into something that is actually actionable is very difficult. So let me give you two examples of that. Externally speaking, wouldn't that be great if before going to a customer site on a sales call or pre-sales call, to have a recap of where the account is? Like I'm talking about not only from the notes that you may have taken inside the CRM, and your CRO will always say, please update the CRM, please update the CRM. But let's be frank, we have meeting notes. We have press releases. We have all of these things that are actually very valuable. But, like in order to prepare for a meeting at customer site, who has the time to actually sit down and do an exhaustive survey of everything? That doesn't happen. Now, if you have an LLM that can actually do that for you, now that's a game changer. Here's the thing internally. I don't know for you, like I enjoyed the previous session where people were discussing about, whether you want people to focus on pre-sales only as opposed to doing some of the deliveries. In my world, most of the time people are expected to do some deliveries. And here's the problem. You get hampered in your pre-sales effort because when you're trying to hand things over to, say, the support group or post-sales or customer success or whatever it is, people come back to you and say, like, we don't quite understand what was implemented there. Could you please shed some light? And we were spending a lot of time doing that kind of side mission, and it's basically it can kill your productivity because pre-sales group or field engineering group, for example, they're not tooled to doing like the day-to-day support. Now, if we had access to AI that could actually do a little bit more of a survey of what has been implemented, maybe analyze a solution, analyze the meeting notes again, and instead of just going to the FE and asking, look, could you explain to me what actually happened there? They can actually service themselves. That will be great, not only for the pre-sales group, but also for the support.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think a lot of those things definitely will become game changers with just a lot of the efficiency, a lot of the overall kind of alignment. Pam, I know I'd love to hear from you next, kind of your take building on what Steve had said.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like when Steve was talking, I got a little bit of trigger, right? I think there's a lot of things that we can do. And kind of being in this space, even from a cybersecurity, I feel like there's a lot of companies that are trying to figure out what AI and especially Gen AI is going to do for them. But I definitely see it twofold, right? Some of the basics here, like the note takers, which are just life changing, right? As someone who's grown up in pre-sales, the things that we now have at our fingertips. So, within the most imminent time frame and like this year and next, as the models are becoming more efficient, right now we're able to get a lot more insights from the information, right? So now the activities Steve was talking about, as well as, data that seems to live everywhere that we're capturing, now we can actually summarize that, right? So I come from the world where, you were a field SE and you had to read 10 Qs and 10 Ks just to find out a little bit about some of these publicly held companies. We're now, not between the note takers and between all the other AI tools that can actually summarize this information for you. That's a game changer, because not only is it just the summarization, right? I feel like we all know artificial intelligence, and you can go to ChatGPT and ask it pretty much anything. It's really the insights that are coming from that, right? And it's the insights that we can glean. So again, a lot of those tools, even the gongs and the choruses and all of the call recordings that are giving us, I think the insights from that are actually really interesting. And that's sort of changing the trajectory of pre-sales, right? And leadership, as we're all trying to be better coaches, as we're trying to, enable our teams to be more effective, we can look at that going into the future as to, I talk to a lot of these people who know all about our profession, who want to become the SEs of the future. And I think about what they now have at their disposal that a lot of us on this call did not have. I think it's really exciting for them to be able to use that, and for us as leaders to be able to help coach them on the most important things to look at, right? To be able to enable them to be just better and showing up better for the calls, right? And really being able to be SCs who know a lot more about their buyers, because as we know, we can talk all night about buyer enablement as well. But I just think it's really fascinating to be able to see how the tools are evolving going forward to just make SCs better prepared for calls.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of beyond even the time savings there, right? Absolutely. Jay, I know we want to hear your opinion as well on kind of where you see it going the next 3 to 5 years. I think you're muted.
I agree with
There you go.
what Pam and Steve have already shared quite a bit so far. Maybe an analogy that we often use even internally to drone deploy is, and our product in many ways is very similar to what our SCs at drone deploy do, where our goal is to be able to now enable our customers to essentially be superhuman, because our product allows them to fly, to teleport, to travel through time. And as an extended analogy, it's a bigger challenge for us as an SE team, specifically within our organization, because we're horizontal across industries. We need to be specialized within the industries we serve. We're working with a variety of different technologies, some of which are federally regulated, and you have to deal with international compliance. And so that adds a degree of complexity to the role already that we often have to deal with as a company. And we're fortunate enough where we've been able to justify a 1-to-3 AE to SE ratio, which has been really healthy. But we're constantly being asked to be more and more efficient as we grow as a company, as we hit cash flow break even. And so being able to do more as SEs with less time means we have to adopt new technologies and new tools to make us more efficient. And I see AI being that enabler for us as a team and an organization, because to what Pam and Steve have already shared, it allows us to do things like automatically summarize information before we show up on site. That's going to reduce the prep time that we need to do to put our best foot forward when we're doing on-sites. If we're running an evaluation, helping us create an evaluation plan really quickly and easily based on best practices. Or playbooks, whether we have good playbooks or bad playbooks, means they can quickly glean insights from what other SEs have found successful or not successful and be able to replicate that in their evaluation plans. So ultimately, I see AI as a lever to enable superhuman SEs over the next 3 to 5 years, where the most successful SEs are going to be the ones that have learned how to integrate AI technologies into their day-to-day workflows that allows them to do 10 times what an average SE might be able to do.
Love that idea of a superhuman SC, right? I feel like, I mean, the biggest question, aren't we already like superhuman in what we do? I mean, I've heard like, come on, we're already superhuman in pre-sales. But if we're moving towards, having AI leveraging us We just heard about in the previous session all about sort of the generalists and specialist types roles and carving those out, which was a great conversation. If you missed that, do check out the recording. But with here, you talked about, you got your ratio down 1 to 8. Jay, I would love to dig a little bit further into that. Do you think that's going to mean we need less of us to do the work, or how will that be adjusting as we become more superhuman as sellers?
Yeah. I mean, you can go really philosophical down this strategy of just, is technology replacing humans? And I think AI is no different for advancement of technology compared to other jobs that we may have had in the past. Elevator operators, or even today, I mean, driving could become a thing of the past. I was out in a Waymo just this past weekend in San Francisco, and it's pretty impressive where driverless technology is. Now, there's going to be an adoption curve for technology like this, but what that means is that the things that I know my SEs absolutely hate doing are things that we can start to automate. So doing things like taking notes, sending out follow-up emails, being able to summarize key insights from a call and be able to share that in a way that's meaningful. Those are all tasks that we need the team to do to be efficient as a sales organization, but we know is already a really complicated task for them to be able to do. And so those are the kinds of tasks that I see AI replacing quite a bit, which means ultimately my SEs will feel a lot more motivated and excited in the work that they're doing on a day-over-day basis, because they can work on true problem solving that's exciting and curious for them, compared to the mundane tasks that they might have to do that allows us to be an efficient sales organization.
That's what
Yeah.
I would say here. I mean, Jay is totally right about this. What AI would do is, automate things that are automatable. Like, let's take, for example, the RFPs. There's a number of things on an typical RFP that can be answered automatically. Now, the problem is that clients, they have their own forms, they have their own structure. So it's not something that is easily automatable by conventional means. An AI may actually be quite successful at doing that, but on the same token, and here, hopefully that you forgive me for being a little bit selfish and saying, I made a video out of that, so just checked it on LinkedIn, but sometimes your RFPs can be rigged. Then this is where I would not trust an AI to make the right decision, to say, well, I know that there's a competitor that actually wrote all of these questions. The AI will be able to automate the part that is like basically not fluff, but basically low value, that you should not be spending your time anyway, and probably you feel quite bored doing so. And so you have more time thinking about, well, okay, so this has been written by a competitor. How do I pick the mind of my customers to make them realize that, like they're limiting themselves here? How do I strategically answer that RFP so, like I can move to second base?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on both points, Jay and Steve, that you're making there, like it's less about reducing the work we're doing, but more maybe reducing the work we all hate, reducing the things that it's hard for us to do, and allowing us to be better at the things we need to do. Which leads me to a question. And Pam, actually, I know you have an interesting perspective on this. If we look at AI and we're doing a lot of the things that Steve, you and Jay were mentioning, how do we make sure that we're not stripping away anything that might be a human component away from it? Like, how do we ensure there's still that human interaction rather than just replacing everything that we do?
Yeah, I love this question because I feel like people ask me this a lot. Like, is AI gonna replace SCs? Is AI gonna become this new interaction? Nobody ever has to talk to us. And I don't believe that. I believe there's still a human interaction that must happen. And again, I'm huge advocate of, solutions like, I'm going to shout them out, Sam Sales and the Show Me You Know Me, right? I feel like this is really enabling SCs to come with a point of view, to come with knowing a lot more about your prospects. It also helps with the whole AE throw it over the wall. Hey, SE, can you just show up and do a demo for this call, right? I mean, we all know this still continues to happen. And, we can just be better prepared for doing, more discovery type demos and just really making, I'm such an advocate of it's not about you, it's about your buyer. This allows you to put it in that perspective so that now your SEs feel like they actually are showing up prepared, that you cared enough about your buyer to get some, basic, not even just basic information, really detailed information. I think Steve had something in the chat here that talked about how he can actually use, whether it's ChatGPT or one of the large language models and creating his own prompts, right? Being able to get a position on where that company is at this point. That's some of the things that was actually, we probably did at some point, but we need a lot of time to do it, right? So again, that time savings, but also enabling your SCs to come with that point of view. Hey, I understand this is the kind of thing you're working on as an organization. Other customers have told us this as well, and it really allows you to create, and without a human to do that, I don't believe there's any way. I mean, I love Waymo and the fact that you can like get in that car and someday I won't have to worry about traffic because the cars will all drive themselves and I'll be so happy. But again, just having that interaction with another human, I think your buyer eventually does want to talk to you. They want to hear your point of view. So I'm like super passionate about making sure that this is actually an enabler for SCs to be better at their craft, because I believe this is a craft and they can learn more from it. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of using this to their advantage.
Yeah, I think everything that I've seen, and I think this gets back to what Jay, you were saying about the things that your team hates, right? That's the part that I welcome almost the replacement, but to Pam's point, the connection with somebody, that's you we're still going to want someone to connect to, and there's more nuances there around the actual connection. Digging a little bit further into this, as we're thinking about not just, you know, the SCs themselves, but you as leaders, right? You have teams, and there's probably a lot of conversation around different ways to use AI, or maybe some people who are completely resistant to the idea. How do you embrace a culture of embracing the right parts of AI that can help to make them into the superhumans while keeping that human component? How do you lead your team towards that adoption? Steve, I know you have a point of view on this. I'd love to hear kind of your perspective.
So my perspective on that is going to be kind of forward-looking. You know, you need to have the right people on your crew. Experience is important, expertise is important as well, but we're entering a world where things are changing very quickly, even quicker than before. And what you need the most are people that can actually learn and learn quickly and learn on the fly and actually love to learn. That's one of the questions that I always ask during an interview each time that I'm trying to recruit an SC is that, do you like to learn? Like, can you tell me like, well, like some examples that will prove that to be true? Because I know that you cannot know everything, that the customers are going to throw you curveballs. So I need you to be adaptable. Now it's even more important because guess what? We have AI that is going to change our lives in so many ways. And we don't know, we think we know where this is going, but in fact, we could be amazed 2 years down the line and finding like, oh, geez, I mean, that changed a lot more than what I thought. So we need the people to be able to learn to be resilient in front of change. And I would say also people that are adaptable when they find themselves in trouble. I mean, this is a hallmark of a good SC. It's like you get yourself in trouble, how do you get out? Now you have this thing going on with AI. It's going to be even more important. So don't get me wrong. Expertise is important. Experience, that's great. But you do want to have those particular personality traits are going to be even more important now in our day of age as they were before.
Something
Yeah.
interesting here too, I just want to jump in on, and I found this at a few organizations, because again, things like ChatGPT we've all heard about. I use Perplexity a lot. Again, not a shout out to any one tool. There's a lot of really great ones out there, but also they're coming out fast and furious, right? So there's a lot of new things that are joining us with around demo automation and using AI to automatically change your environment. I think that's pretty exciting. But I think it's one of those things that we as leaders have to embrace, because I still know SCs that are using a lot of these tools that actually aren't telling leadership that they're using them, which is kind of crazy to me, right? It's almost like they're still feeling a little bit like it's a cheat. Like I shouldn't really be using these tools, where I embrace them the exact opposite. Where, if I'm onboarding a new SC, I feel like this should be this is what you should know is in your arsenal of tools, right? Every company should really be thinking about, hey, we should get a paid version or a pro version of one of those, tools, because there's plenty of free ones out there. You can definitely still use ChatGPT for free, but I think organizations really need to think about this. We have a paid subscription to ChatGPT. A lot of us are using other tools that we're sharing with our teams. And I think that really should be the approach, because again, no SC should feel like they're cheating by, getting ChatGPT to give them some insights into a customer, or also, again, like the RFP. I mean, is any of us ever going to say we love doing RFPs? Never. It's not going to happen. So talk about being a superhuman. I think if you can enable any SC to be able to easily get through a whole list of 280 questions that came on a Friday before you're trying to leave for your vacation, and it's easier to do, but also accurate, right? Because these tools, without AI, they've been around for a while. They just haven't really been that great or accurate. So again, we're trying to enable the SCs to also feel like this is something you should do to get you to that next level of superhuman. And I think we need to do a better job at that as leaders, as making sure that the SC team knows that we're expecting them to use that. It's not a cheat.
I want to add to what you'd shared just then, Pam, too. I think a big part of this is your organization needs to be bought in that this is a technology that is allowed and expected, for their teams to use to help enable their jobs. And as leaders, I think a big part of that is working with our most favorite team, the IT team, to make sure that we can get a license that we can use and communicate across the company. So at Drone Deploy, our IT team had been fully supportive of it. They're, of course, not supportive of us uploading any customer data to any public tool that's available online. So historically, people have been more averse to using other tools like that, because you'll get a slap on the wrist from the IT if you try to do something like that on your own. But our IT team went out, purchased a ChatGPT Pro at the very simple level. It means that any customer data that we upload to it is private to us. It's not being used to train other models. And they communicated to the entire company that this is available. If you want to be added to our ChatGPT account, create an IT ticket, they'll add you to our subscription. And then there was top-down buy-in to say, we have this available for you. Most people are already familiar with ChatGPT and using it, but now here's this privatized, secure sandbox environment that anyone in the company can use to do whatever it is they need to do for any of their roles. So our marketing team has been using it, our product team has been using it, the SE team has been using it. And we're still at this exploratory stage of what does that actually mean for our day jobs and how can we use it? But even that level of culture shift has enabled the entire company to start to adopt the technology more and not feel ashamed about using this technology.
So let's say someone is in a position where they're thinking, yes, that's what I want my company to do. That's how I want my team to be supported. But maybe they don't know how to get that done. What's some first steps to starting to get that kind of corporate buy-in for these tools? Like, I don't know, Jay, like, I don't know if you spearheaded that, or Pam, if you've done that. How do you get started trying to get that buy-in and support for these tools?
Yeah, I mean, I can share a little bit and I'll hand it over to Pam. I was not the one that spearheaded this. It definitely would take a lot more to be able to evolve the culture at our company. But one of the benefits we've had is that one of our co-founders leads our data organization at the company, and he is absolutely phenomenal with that. He's got a team that helps build out Tableau dashboards and reports and whatever else we need as a company. And he's one of the ones that pioneered, this is something that we need, something we want to use, but let's put some guardrails on this so that people can use this in a safe and secure way without all hell going loose with this data. That being said, one of the things that he has asked all the leaders in the company to do is start to work with their individual teams to figure out how can we use this to increase efficiency for our day-to-day jobs. And going into 2025, that's a key theme for us as a go-to-market organization. We need to get more efficient, and we see this as a driver. But the ownership is really down on us to say, okay, the tool is available. We made it available. Now it's in your hands to decide how your teams will use it and enable your teams to be able to use it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, I love that, and I agree. It really does come from the top down, and at Lorica, we're a really small company, but we are also started in academia, so we definitely have those folks who are used to things like research and looking at tools that are a bit more cutting edge, I guess. And so we've been embracing that from when I came on here, having even just a paid chat GPT but being able to enable the company as a whole and those in different parts of the organization to understand, what are some good use cases. I think from the SE perspective, I think what would be great, as I'm actually building out a team, I think it's important to get people together to say, hey, these are some of the ways that I'm using it. How are you using it, right? I can envision, my last role, we had a much larger organization where, SEs would share kind of tips and tricks or things that they're using. I think we can enable them with here's what we have. Obviously, I believe it still needs a human interaction, right? I mean, we know that you can ask Chat GPT things a bunch of different ways and get answers that may be more relevant to you, but you still have to, as a human, look at the results, right? I think there's still in your workflow, you still got to build that in. But I think as an organization, everyone uses a little bit different. And I think that's a great sharing opportunity to be able to figure out, well, what's a better way to use this in this way? And someone wrote in the chat, which I really loved. I'm trying to look, I think it was Patrick, um, talking about training your own LLMs. And I think that's really an interesting place to explore too. I know we didn't have it on our list of questions, but how do you build out some things that are more pertinent to you as your organization rather than just using open source models that could be, maybe not trained on the data that you want. I think that's a big place for us today, and it's something that we have to explore as we're expanding. And I know I've talked to a lot of the newer RFP vendors out there and some of their AI capabilities, and they're actually training those on your data. So it's not only private, but also that it's more relevant and reliable because it's obviously using your data, but it also means you have to have that data available, right? So it's a little bit of a cat and mouse there, but I think it's also opening up a lot of avenues for companies to really look at, how do we is it a large language model? Is it a small language model, right? There's lots of opportunities there for exploration. In a smaller company, you wear a lot of hats, so unfortunately, it kind of falls on those of us who actually want to, spearhead that too. That maybe it's more from an organizational perspective. Someone who maybe traditionally wouldn't be doing that.
I met actually a company in Boston during a recent AI event, and it was very interesting. The guy told me that the CEO told me that he started between the time he started his company and the time he broke even, it was 72 days. And all he was doing is provide an AI model that he doesn't retrain all the time, but somehow he was able to get the private data and keep it private, obviously, and integrate it on a customer to customer basis. So basically, if you're company X, you provide the data to him, he's able like without, being too, let's say, like they have a very expensive process of completely retraining the LLM. He was able to teach the LLM how to access and recap interesting data. And yeah, 72 days between the time that he founded his company and he broke even. So it's a great business.
The businesses are changing so fast, and it's along with that side of it, the other side of it too makes me go, well, with things changing so fast, how do you stay current, right? Like, Perplexity, Copilot, ChatGPT Pro, whatever everyone's using. What about the new tools that are coming out? What about like the explosion right now in our space of the RFP answering tools? There are probably 3 times more now than there were at the beginning of the year. I have to just do a brief look at the space. So, Steve, I love it in that thought. How do I stay current with all these different? How do you stay current and keep your teams current with new tools that you should be using in the changing environment?
So first of all, I would say like it starts from the top. It's like you need to be curious about these things and you need to, do you have conferences in town that are talking about AI? If so, I would definitely go if you can have the time or make the time basically, because you will find that, hey, I never thought about that kind of application. I never thought that this was possible. So conferences are great. Obviously, doing your own research, not that I would say, like, I don't want to use that catchphrase unwisely, but yeah, sure, you need to keep on researching about these things. Try to see, like, if you were to replace us on the panel, how do you show up having some knowledge? And also, on the same token, I would say, have the humility to know that you don't know all the answers. And maybe that's also something great, like tagging onto what Pam and Jay were saying before. One of the things that I did for my crew was I told them that when we went into a sprint, so on site, instead of having me teaching them everything, I would like each and every one of my crew member to have an area of expertise that they would present to the rest of the crew. So we learn from each other, right? And in AI, I think that's going to be very much necessary because it's such a wide field and it's evolving really quickly. So my encouragement to all my fellow leaders would be, if there's a member of your crew that comes into your virtual office and says, like, I would like to explore this. Could we do a POC on that? Like an application of AI that would hopefully change the business for the better. You don't have to have all the great ideas. Entertain it, see if there's value. And if there is, I mean, that's a great way of delegating, is to ask that individual contributor that is obviously very motivated to have that side gig, say, okay, let's see how far the rabbit hole really goes. And yeah.
I think we can also identify where there are some areas for, if we think about AI as just for like tools for an organization, especially as we focus this on pre-sales, right? I think we can identify, are there gaps in what we're trying to do? Are we trying a coverage model like Jay got to 3-to-1, or are we trying to do more, qualified opportunities that we really have an SC assigned to? And can we use others for more demo automation? Or, at this time of year, do we get, 300 RFPs? I think there's always a problem that we can solve, and we have to make the decision as to whether or not there is a tool that has some kind of artificial intelligence or some way to automate some of the things that are more manual, right? Even, like you said, note takers earlier. I mean, that's a huge time saver. Do we as an organization need to purchase one? Do we need to, a free one can get you so far, right? So I think there's still doing a bit of a POC sometimes and just kind of taking that to executive leadership to say, hey, listen, this is what we found. We think it can do this, just like we would any other problem. Like when we're engaged to solve a problem for our buyers, we have to be the buyer. We have to do that at some point to really see if we can enable our own organizations to take this on. As you said, there's so much out there, so it really does require, you have to get your head around it, right? Like, what is it we're really getting? Are you really training a model? Like, does it start somewhere? I mean, there's so much to learn, but there is actually a lot of free training. I share a lot on LinkedIn. What's free out there? Every time you turn around, there's something about, never mind AI. Gen AI is the hot topic, right? Everybody wants to say they do something with Gen AI, Gen AI. So, it's a little harder because you're trying to weed out the noise a little bit from what's reality, especially, if you're in my space, you have to actually have a point of view on Gen AI. How is that going to, what is that going to do for our clients? How are we going to protect them? We're on the data protection side. So, I think it does require, a little bit more upfront time for SCs and also SC leadership to really kind of dive into what it actually is that we're talking about. Because it could run the gamut of what AI actually is and what is considered, important during this time frame. And I think it's changing and evolving.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing you say, Pam, too, is that there's two parts to it. There's how do we as leaders stay on top of the ever-changing industry? And part of that, just like we ask of our SEs, like Steve, you had mentioned, is general curiosity. If you don't already have time blocked off on your calendar for dedicated research, do that now. That's a big part of what we need to do as leaders, is making sure we're as educated as we can, whether that's whatever source you get your information from. And encourage your teams to do it. One of the things I'm thinking about doing for my team in 2025 is we're going to probably have an early offsite in February and just do an AI brainstorming workshop and say, hey, we have these tools available. I want to give you a dedicated hour where you can sit down as a team and think about what are different ways we can leverage this and come up with a few proposed solutions that we can implement. And that kind of leads into the second part of one of the main challenges with AI is that it is so ambiguous, especially with large language models today. ChatGPT can be really helpful when you know exactly what to ask it and frame it in the exact right way. And that can be challenging for most people, myself included, when this technology is brand new and you're figuring out how you can use this for your day-to-day jobs. And so what's more important to what Pam had mentioned earlier, just like we do with our customers, is asking the question, what is the job to be done? And building a solution that allows us to solve that problem without getting caught up in, okay, what's new, what's next, where is this industry going to solve that one problem? So as an example, and hopefully there's no RFP vendors on the call, we have actually built out our own internal RFP answering solution. It's not foolproof by any means, but we used Google's Notebook LM, which means we can train our own data set. It reduces the amount of hallucination that we're going to get in our responses. And we train that off of this master 500 question, 1,000 question security questionnaire that my team has been helping populate over the past few years. Every time we got a response from our security team that we used to copy paste into security questionnaires regardless. And so now our security leader has taken over that spreadsheet and making sure that information is up to date. But now we're able to feed that into Notebook LM. And we've created a custom script and just a Google Sheet that runs that LM. So we can copy paste security questions into a Google Sheet. It'll answer those to the best of its ability. And my team will take those responses, copy them into a questionnaire, and at least reduces the, say, an hour it might take for them to originally fill out one of these questionnaires down to about 5 to 10 minutes, which then gets escalated to me and our security leadership to do a human review before we actually submit this. So we're not 100% automating this. We know there's going to be issues along the way. And we've been running this for about 6 months now and tweaking the prompt that we have within Google LM. And we're actually at a point where I think we're about 95% confident in a majority of these responses. And so it has helped us reduce the amount of time that we need to fill out RFPs and security questionnaires much more considerably than we've had to do in the past. And that's a great example of, yes, there's a ton of other ways that we can implement other AI technologies, but we have this one big problem. We built a solution, no matter how hacky and dirty it is, because it's in Google Sheets, but it works for us. And we've been able to track that it's reduced our time on RFPs and security questionnaires by about 60 to 70%, which is a big win for us as a company.
I love the tracking and the kind of ability to tie it back to something specific. One other area of focus that I know is always top of mind for any sales leader is forecast accuracy. Actually understanding what deals might close when. I'm just curious to know if any of you have used any AI tools specifically for that side, less than the RFP answer, maybe more on that side. And have you seen any success, measurable success you can bring to the rest of the sales leadership team?
So our note taker, we use Fathom. It actually is integrated with our SPICE methodology. So it will come out and actually tell you after a demo or really any call, it will go through the SPICE methodology and actually highlight it all. So we can use that with the forecast because obviously the AE is going to have hopefully the same information that they're building in Salesforce as part of that methodology. So we can actually kind of look at the two and see if there are any gaps or things that we didn't actually encounter that our note taker actually spit out for us. So it's been a really interesting tool just to use it as kind of a sync up to make sure that we're on the same page and what was heard for us and is summarized as part of that call. So it's been a really interesting thing to use from that perspective.
So Steve or Jay?
So, Jack, this is actually not something that I had the privilege to do, but I can definitely see it's going to be something that I'm hoping all CROs are going to require, because I don't know for you, maybe that I'm totally, in my own corner of the universe. Somehow I doubt it. Calling whether an account is going to close or not is still very much not really science. It's really, at least for the companies that I work for, it's a question of feeling. It's a question of, somehow the AE divine something like, yeah, I think it can close. But in fact, sometimes if you scratch the surface, you can see that there are patterns emerging, and once you see these patterns, you know that the account is in trouble. And I think that, for the efficiency of technical sales in general, if we could actually have AI coming in and helping and kind of giving a long, hard code look at where are we in this account, where is it going, how many days has, and kind of have a predictive algorithm, basically. So not necessarily generative AI, but certainly predictive, saying, hey, according to that trajectory, I don't think that this is going to close this month. And have this, and have AEs basically saying, well, the AI is wrong here, and here's why. And then maybe use that feedback if it turns out that AI was wrong, to refine the model. But yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
the barometer,
Go ahead, Pam. I mean,
I was
are
gonna say,
are you in the same boat as me, or
I mean, I could see, yeah, I could see where it comes as a barometer. And I think most SCs, if you ask for what they, their vision of the forecast, because you're getting the forecast and they hear things like, wait, why are they calling that deal? Is that real? You know what I mean? So there's definitely been at times over the years a little bit of conflict between the two, right? AE's calling this deal and SC's like, wait a minute. So not AI related, but we did actually implement what we call the technical win at my last role. And I at first it's really more like it can solve, our solution will solve the problem the buyer came to us for. So the technical win isn't just that the technology is a check mark. It's really more around, does it solve the problem that they're looking to solve? And so SEs feel much more confident saying that, okay, that I believe technical win was, we got the technical win. And then that way they don't feel as much like I'm, telling the AE something that, they don't really agree with, so they don't have that conflict, right? I feel like most SCs don't want that conflict with an AE. Oh, some might, but the good news with the AI actually spitting it out in Fathom, right, is that it's neither, like, it's not the SC saying it. Fathom will come up, and then the SC kind of has to say, well, yeah, I agree. Like, we didn't really find, we don't really have a champion, or, what part of it, we're not necessarily aligned on. And I think that it's probably been better just to kind of have that other voice rather than having to worry about, we're both not saying the same thing, I guess, is the challenge.
Yeah.
Yep, excellent. So we are just about 5 minutes left here in this session. This has been great so far. I do want to hop over to some of the Q&A that we have gotten to this point. And there is one that I'm hoping maybe someone here understands what's being referred to. If not, we can punt on that and move past it. First question here from Woody Evans on the other side of the equation. Can the extent of AI set pre-sales folks? I think this is early on in the session referring to AI replacing pre-sales or kind of simplifying the life. Can the extent of AI set pre-sales folks up for a Jevons paradox? If anyone is familiar with that, then I encourage you to speak up. I would have to look that up as to what that is.
I looked it up because, I'm an old SC, I gotta look it up. And it's a really cool intro, I guess sort of that phenomenon where, I guess is what it says. It's a phenomenon that when you progress to a point where there's like this dichotomy of, is it really better now? Or, are we just using the resource too much? So almost like, hey, are we relying too much on Chat GPT to do all the SC's work kind of thing, I think is how I read into it. But, again, I feel like it's never going to replace the human interaction. And if all you're doing is going to Chat GPT to ask how to like do a demo and set up your demo script, then I would suggest that that's really not a great use of your time. Because in that case, you could just show up and do your, crappy harbor tour demo, and you're not getting any value out of that. So if you're getting to the point where you're just doing it just to show up and spit something out with Chat GPT, I would say that, we need to evaluate that differently. And as leaders, again, using AI tools for better coaching, if I'm watching that call and it feels like that's all it is, I would probably want to have a discussion about how we can better utilize those tools without them becoming to the point where they're just kind of taking over doing your work for you. And now there's a law of diminishing returns there, right? I don't know if anyone else read into it a little bit differently, but that was my take on it.
Well, my take would be like, what is the number one currency in the technical sales universe? It's trust, right? You want to have that nice, cozy feeling that when somebody stands in front of you and says, Mr., Mrs. Customer, this is going to happen if you choose our solution, then this is really going to happen. And unless you have commander data in front of you, I don't know. I mean, personally, I would not trust, I would not establish the same level of trust with an AI unless it's commander data than I would with a regular human being, because I know the human being is, unless you're psychopath or sociopath, let's not go there, but regular human beings that you want to do business with, they have a face, they have a pride that they want to make sure that things happen for you. And that's the part of it that is actually quite important. This is where our humanity is actually playing a big role. But also keep in mind that AI is being trained based on tons and tons of text, videos, all kinds of data points. But what it lacks in my view is like when you ask AI to generate a text, there's always a certain flavor to it. It's kind of a little bit conformist. It's always a little bit of the same. It's nice, it does a work, but that's not where you're going to have the stroke of genius. And this is where human beings also required. Say, for example, your customer intends to use your solution in a non-recommended way. You can proceed with the sales, but you can clearly see them hitting a wall 3 months down the road. An AI might not be able to actually be able to handle that very well. It's like you really need somebody to say, look, I know what you're trying to do. I think that this is what the need that you're trying to solve, not necessarily through that mean, but like you really want to land there. This is a problem you're trying to fix. And sure, you can use this, but did you consider something else? That I don't think, again, coming back to commander data, once we have him, sure. But AI today, I would not trust AI to do that kind of mission.
I'll just share a quick anecdote. We ran an analysis, win-loss analysis from our deals so far this year, especially amongst some of our competitors. And one of the biggest reasons that our customers have said they've purchased from us is because of the level of support that we provided through the pre-sales process and the continued support we offer post-sales. And that's hard. It does require a ton of people at our company to spend face-to-face time. My team goes out on site at least 2 or 3 times a month to get in front of customers. And that's a big time constraint that we have as a team that we're never going to be able to replace that human connection. And so anything that helps us optimize is really what's going to drive that demand. So I don't think AI is really going to replace the technologies or the teams where you still need to have that face-to-face connection. And for most of the enterprise software products that most of our companies are selling, that is going to be the case where you can't just replace that with a fully automated sales team because our customers just aren't going to buy from us if they don't have a human that they can talk to at the end of the day. But it kind of goes back to what I shared at the very beginning. It's about building superhuman SEs. It's not replacing the SE by any means, but I do see this driving demand for in the future where I'd expect any SEs that were to join my team to have some level of proficiency using AI technologies, because that'll become a baseline standard to be an average SE, whereas right now it's the expectation to be an above average SE.
We're all on track for that superhuman SEs for sure. So we are running right up against time. I see Courtney popping right back in, right on cue. Jay, Pam, Steve, thank you so much. Before you guys take off, and hopefully you can stick around for networking, but if you can't, please do pop your LinkedIn in the chat so people can connect with you if they'd like on LinkedIn. But this has been a super fun panel. I appreciate each of your time and everyone for the engaging questions and hopping in a chat as well. So